And it is now my time to leave the stage and to leave the floor to Mathieu Bailly, who will welcome our next keynote speaker, Luc Bentolila from Airbus Defense Space.
Thank you. Welcome, Luc. Please on stage, Luc Bentolila. Very happy. Please, Luc. Grab a mic. Have a seat. Welcome to CYSAT, Luc. Good morning. How are you?
Good afternoon already, close to lunch. I'm very good, thank you, Mathieu. Thank you for the invite.
You're a senior VP at Connected Intelligence, a BU of Airbus Defense and Space. I was not very familiar with Connected Intelligence, to be absolutely honest with you. Can you please explain what Connected Intelligence is about at ADS?
Certainly. Good afternoon all. Connected Intelligence is a business unit of Airbus Defense Space. You might certainly know about Airbus, a leader on the commercial aircraft activity as well as on the helicopters. When it comes to defense and security, defense and space, we are driving a leadership capacity in air power with fighter aircraft and mission aircraft, surveillance and multi-role tanker. We are also a leading supplier of satellites for Earth observation, navigation and telecommunication. Connected Intelligence is in fact the systems house of Airbus Defense Space. We are providing end-to-end a secure, resilient solution for our customers. Be it on C4ISR, be it on communication services. We're also an operator. We provide a satellite communication operation for ArtGov. I will take as an example in the UK. We are the operator for the Skynet operations for the UK forces. And we're also providing an end-to-end cyber security solution. We have about more than 1,300 cyber experts and engineers in Airbus Defense Space Connected Intelligence. And not to be too long on that, we are also providing a kind of, and this is a starting point for our development, a multi-domain operations capability that we'll further develop.
Yes, today we're going to talk about multi-domain and defense in general. I don't know if you were in the room this morning. We had the pleasure to welcome Joseph Aschbacher from ESA. He explained a bit the shift of ESA, working from institutional missions to supporting defense efforts for member states. Defense is a huge topic. We see it's also driving the growth of this event at CYSAT. Space companies and security companies joining forces together to provide secure space capabilities. What is your overall reaction of being here at CYSAT for the first time? I don't know, what did you think of the event? Maybe some reactions about the keynotes we heard this morning?
For sure. So first, it's a very interesting event for us. It's first time for me, but not first time for Airbus. We're also delighted to sponsor the event because we believe, and we believe for long, and we will see in a minute why security is so critical for space activities. Listening to the Director General of ESA, specifically on ERS, this is a project or initiative that we are looking at with a lot of interest. We're also linking that to, it was mentioned about the EOGS from European Commission. So definitely this is echoing to what we are interested to follow in Airbus. I'd like to rebound on what the Executive Director for USPA said about the space is everywhere. I'm sure if we take a newspaper, we will find any application case of space in every daily life, and more on the security of our countries and the sovereignty of Europe. So this is certainly something we're also sensitive to, and it's a call for duty somehow for Airbus. The reference I like to make on some project, and it was mentioned probably all along this morning, is IRIS². This is probably not known, but when it comes to security at Airbus, at the very early days of IRIS², even probably before it was named IRIS², we were already in discussion with different players, ESA, Commission, and different players like the satellite operators, why security shall be by design. And security shall be considered in even the definition of IRIS² design and infrastructure.
Yes, also what Rodrigo mentioned, that we depend on space as European citizens, but also our armed forces nationally and on the continent level use space. They need space. We saw it with the dependence on the Ukrainian army of the Viasat connectivity via satellites that was attacked by Russia. This shows that space is becoming really critical for the armed forces. We used to think of war as land operations, sea operations, air operations with aircraft, and now space is also becoming a war domain as well as cyber. That's the big shift in paradigm.
Yeah, and this is, thank you, Mathieu. This is probably the transition to what I wanted to highlight today about the multi-domain operations. But first, let's look at the, I will call it the problem statement. What is the situation? Still, currently, the defense strategies remain largely domain-specific. In fact, it's quite fragmented architecture. It's even silo decision-making. And the legacy systems that exist in the military forces are not allowing or are limiting at least the cross-domain capabilities. That's the situation of today. But you are right, we see more and more moving ahead with a need for multi-domain operations. But the defense program, as we can see them from our customers and nations, are still anchored in joint operation at the best, or in single domain. What are the domain about? You name it, land, air, maritime, cyber, and there is space. And when it comes to space, we usually think in terms of Earth observation, PNT, comms, but there is also the space operations, the space situation awareness. So operations in space, to our point of view, are a critical part of the multi-domain operations. And it goes with an increased level of risk. I think it was highlighted just before by Mr. Perrin from Thales. The risk is increased because modern architecture are increasing also exposure and threats. So when we're at peacetime, and sorry to paint the picture of the situation a bit dramatic, but peacetime, we have program looking at Earth observation, navigation, you name it, and communication. When moving to more threat and risk of our nations, then space becomes to be a critical asset to the multi-domain operations. And this is where we see this as being a key element, because if there is no secure space segment, there is no secure operations. I will probably give one or two examples, moving ahead, at least listening to our customer. The big concern is about intelligence, ISR. They need more and more intelligence capacity. This is for today, it's now. But moving ahead, and you heard about the rearm of Europe and how we have, the governments are moving with the geopolitics, it will be space critical operations. And that's where we need as an industry to understand this requirement and how we can transform it. I will even dare to say without space, there is no point to fight. It's not a question of winning the battlefield. You simply don't go to fight if you don't have a space capacity. So how can we offer space capacity, secure one, not being hacked, and being available for defense purpose?
When do you think these came obvious for your customers to realize that space was indeed a critical domain? Was that like long ago, or if only a few months ago? Was it? When did you see the change of perspective?
The change, I mean,
after Viasat attack in 2022.
Sure. Let's recognize that at least the different customer we're addressing, military side are on the space element and body for long, right? It's not new. What is changing though is the notion of hybrid threat, and the mix of use of commercial capacity and military capacity. This is probably where we see an acceleration where, and I think Director General Ashbauer said it this morning, is a combination of using commercial asset and governmental asset, and how you make them working together, kind of, and how you secure this overall architecture. That's where I see the evolution. Maybe I give one use case or two. When we industry were building up a requirement for commercial asset, we are already taking into account a cyber resilience, not for the purpose of the service part right now, but also anticipating what could be a dormant threat, a malware. Imagine a situation where we launch an Earth observation satellite, but there is a malware dormant, and at the time of the conflict, when you need the capacity, it's activated. That's where we need to think ahead of it in terms of design. That's where we see a change, and especially in the expression of requirement from the customers.
And maybe to illustrate a bit more, even if it's might be obvious for the audience here. So obviously, space is used as telecommunication mean. That was the example of the Ukrainian army, depending on the Viasat modems, with the shift towards low Earth orbit constellations. Space is also used for Earth observation, imagery, to get intelligence and the connection with the business unit at Airbus. What other use cases maybe you can think of to illustrate how space is critical for the armed forces? Maybe fighter jets, warships. This is what comes to mind, right? Anything else you can add or complete to this picture?
So this is the whole notion of connectivity. By the way, I'm representing the connected intelligence. So now you see the link with the activity we have. More seriously, this is a notion of connectivity that is not only a downlink, uplink. This is a connectivity in a multi-domain operations where indeed, from the edge, the air edge, where you have the actual engagement, to the cloud, where you have the environment to provide this connectivity. This is where space is relevant. From an industry point of view, it ties into standardization, 5G connectivity, non-terrestrial network and terrestrial network connection. I'd like to mention that we see that as what we call a security continuum. When you perform an operations, it's for the sake of securing population and citizens. And that's where again, a notion of hybrid in the sense of military forces, blue force, public security work together. So to your question, Mathieu, use case, connectivity to public service forces. When we have a natural disaster, you can use the same capacity for saving population and supporting them.
It's kind of the dual use purpose that Joseph Ashbara was mentioning this morning. You mentioned the word continuum, which is an interesting concept, connecting all these domains of operations. Space and cyber being kind of the latest additions to this group. Historically, cybersecurity, and we know it very well at CYSAT, has not been part of the culture of the space industry. How did your customers react? How did you see them evolving towards a new posture regarding security? How do you make sure that space is not the weakest link, as Rodrigo said this morning, and can keep up with the level of security with the other domains of operations?
Well, when we speak about customers, we have to look also at the different situations, whether they are the procurement agency or the force themselves or the different bodies or even the institutions. So it's various. And this is where we have a lot of work to do in terms of collaboration and cooperation between players, industries. It's not something that we do alone. There is a notion of standardization, certainly. There is a notion of authority, cyber or a security, I would say security authority, that is, I will take one example from one country, I will not name it, but there is a commandment for cyber, but the forces are also developing their own cyber capacity. So there is a need for more, let's say, a collaboration between the different bodies, but us as industry, our responsibility is to provide innovations. Innovation comes from a partnership we have with university and startups and onboarding some research labs. So by bringing some solutions or concept of operations to our customer, we can bring them together in a collaborative manner.
And we see a lot of interest also from emerging countries to have their own sovereign capabilities regarding space, again, to compete in these multi-domain operations, which is the current and future battlefield. How do you approach that at Airbus? Is it for you like emerging markets? Do you see more customers coming to you, asking for solutions that did not consider maybe buying capabilities from you before with maybe new security requirements? Is it new business for you, a growth opportunity?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I used to say there is no customer for MDO, for multi-domain operations. It's not the way it is. Again, the important word in MDO is operations. Our customers are asking for a capacity to engage in their mission. And this is not a multi-domain technical solution that they are expressing. It's a multi-domain operation. So we need to understand their concern, what they are facing. What we see more and more as an expression is acceleration of intelligence capacity again, and how to converge, moving away from a platform-centric definition to a data-centric architecture. And that's where they come to industry, not only to us, but to industry in general. This is fairly well documented by NATO. If you want to look at the definition of this continuum of security between defense and security and bringing together cyber and space, NATO is publishing some good reference document. But in short, it's about being more data-centric and having software-defined defense development. And that's where we bridge with customers.
So the role of technology to enable space capabilities to bridge that gap. Maybe one question for me, just out of curiosity. We talked a lot about the geopolitical context, maybe not naming them, but Russia and China mostly. How do you assess the evolution of the threats on space systems from an industry perspective? Do you prepare differently? Do you change your practices around cybersecurity for your product, maybe in terms of governments, in terms of technology, adding some features of detection, protection capabilities? How did this change recently, considering these new threats that are here?
So it's always a bit of schizophrenia. You need to have solutions that are available immediately. There is always a notion of urgency. And at the same time, you need to think more a midterm, long-term perspective and to innovate. When we speak about innovation, ultimately we speak about how to increase the technological readiness, the TRL level. So yes, we are doubling on investing. We have a responsibility as an industry to invest on our own capacity, while we are also looking at a development program for the mid-long term. What are the changes? The changes, it's really acceleration in terms of how technology can accelerate the capacity to bring multi-domain operations, let's say, enablers. A couple of examples, we speak a lot about artificial intelligence. This is for us not something that we sell, it's something that we embed to accelerate the capacity of, namely ISR, intelligence capacity, how we can help and support with imagery, data fusion of different sensors to have a better intelligence of the situation for the customers. So that's one element. The other one is looking a bit further, is quantum computing. That is also an acceleration for us. So it's back to the industry role, is to onboard the right resource and competencies in order to innovate while keeping on the short-term delivery.
Quite a challenge, eh? When we prepared this chat, you mentioned a notion that I found very interesting, was the concept of information superiority. This is what I understand, what your clients want to achieve. They want to achieve information superiority. Could be with satellites or could be with other means. And we see it also that historically the first satellite hack was a random American guy protesting against the rising prices of HBO in the 80s. That was information superiority to be able to do that claim and send that message. How do you approach that notion of information superiority with your clients? What does it mean exactly?
Well, I will link that to the notion of information warfare to start with, because to become or to have capacity for information superiority, what is your threat? Information warfare starts with, at least for government and also large organizations, a threat that they live every day. So we provide what we call multi-int capacity with data fusion of different information source, whether it is open source information or intelligence or electronic intelligence. So the fact that we are developing specific software accelerated by AI for multi-intelligence purpose is a start. But this is only one element of it, which is the information body. Then this is connected into a decision loop for our customer, where they have different assets, be it maritime asset, aircraft asset, space asset, that they need to bring together for a common operational picture and a comprehensive information for their superiority of decision. The point is a decision they make out of the information. So information superiority from the technical means help the customer to make the decision for engagement.
Thank you. Very exciting, by the way. We talked about the interactions between the different domains. So obviously space land, space air, space sea, and so on. The future is also about space operations. We see it with a lot of commercial providers looking at in-orbit services. How do you approach that, like having really space capabilities targeting other space capabilities in orbit? What is your perspective or your roadmap on that at ADS and Connected?
Well, I need to be cautious on that one because there is a notion behind that, which is a legal framework. So I will leave that to government and institution to regulate what shall be and could be done in space. From an industry point of view, it's more to look at investment we do in some technology, laser communication and inter-satellite link, so how we can, and securing all of that. Certainly there are, and there will be more and more operations space to space. I'm not dropping the question, but honestly, the legal framework is limiting nowadays. So what we can work on is the anticipating the threat of it, because it will come. When we have some nationalized only discussion with some customers, some are working on it, but it requires a legal framework.
And that brings me a bit to the future and future programs and future initiatives. We talked about this future Earth observation constellation that was mentioned by Joseph Aschbacher. Can you mention maybe a few flagship programs that will be the key drivers for ADS and connected intelligence in the next few years?
So I will link your question to the subject of the multi-domain operations. Today, Airbus Defense Space is a partner of the FCAS and the Future Combat Air System program, in which connected intelligence is working on the combat cloud, which is the cloud infrastructure for the combat environment. And this is a kind of the first cell of what will further define what we call a multi-domain combat cloud that ultimately link to other domains. So moving from the edge air domain, and we are very good at air domain in Airbus. It's part of our native DNA. But we move from the air domain to space domain, and all that in an architecture around the so-called multi-domain combat cloud. So this is one of the program, FCAS, I can refer to. Closer to this conference, definitely RE2 is a program in which we are committed to support on different elements, from the ground to the security part of it, as well as the operations. EOGS is probably the next to come together with ERS. That's what we are looking at. I'm speaking about international and large program. There are some domestic and national eyes-only program that I cannot refer here. But this is also part of the communality of program in which we want to be part of. But not speaking only about programs, I want to insist on the technology development. We are investing a significant amount of money on our self-funded R&D capacity to always innovate. It was said this morning, I was interestingly listening to the notion of the large company and the startups and new space. For me, this is the same, in fact. It has to work together. We have certainly a financial capacity to invest in technology, but it's not to develop everything ourselves. We need partners, we need collaboration, and that's where the next program will materialize if we have the right solution from a technology and security point of view.
Yeah, talking about technology, like we had a lot of requests for technical sessions dealing with AI topics. Do you see also at Airbus significant investment towards AI-related technologies? on your end, like materializing in terms of really R&D efforts and contributions to the current products and services that you deliver to your clients?
Completely. I refer maybe a bit briefly about this multi-intelligence capacity, which is really data fusion of different sensors and capacity. This is completely accelerated by AI. In fact, we do automatization of imagery modelization through AI. AI that either we develop some algorithm with our expert and teams and engineering team, or together with partnership. We have plenty of partnership with AI companies. So that's concrete, it's happening already. Yes, definitely we invest, but not only we invest, we do it, again, it's for the purpose of the operation, the service that we provide to the customer.
Thank you. I'm looking at the app. If you guys in the audience want to ask any questions to Luc, this is your chance, because we're already a bit over time, but let's take one more. Maybe my closing question, I asked that to Rodrigo before. Any message to have as Airbus Defense and Space coming to CYSAT space security community for startups, for maybe we have students also in the rooms, we have institutions, any message you want to send to the community?
Thank you for offering this, Mathieu. I have, in fact, several messages. First, come to Airbus. We have a very motivated team to welcome you. We have some challenges in terms of cyber threat and detection of threats, so come and visit us. Second, we are hiring. So we have a huge need of expert and good people in Airbus. So raise your voice. You can find us on the different social media. Towards institutions, we take our duty, and I think we have a duty, and it's a call for duty when we see the change of geopolitics. We are a defense, space, and security industry in Europe. You know that Airbus is the European, let's say, birth and example of how the best of industry can come together. So we take this duty very seriously. We need program, we need long-term perspective from institutions, and I think it was said this morning, and Joseph Ashbarer is very clear about that. The more we can project ourselves, the more we can invest. The more we can invest, the more we can onboard collaboration and partnership, and this is the virtuous cycle.
We do have one question from the app, Luc, so it's not lunchtime yet. Here it is from Walter Lovey. Working together with different domains within the nation and working together between nation and the increased connectivity are at odds with increasing cybersecurity. What is your vision to solve these challenges?
Well, that's clearly one of the current challenge. I was starting by saying this is still either domestic-driven or one domain-centric, barely joint operation, but clearly not all operations. The difference between cooperation and collaboration is really, in fact, the speed and the decision-making process here. So what we try to do is to develop, and that's really a challenge, is to develop on a national basis some key technologies while keeping building blocks that can be also proposed for a more collaborative manner. And that's really the challenge that we have. There is also an effort to be made on the customer side, in their capacity to cooperate. This is happening thanks to NATO, when you are a NATO nation. So that's another way forward. So it's a combination of both building blocks reuse and cooperation between nations.
Thank you so much, Luc.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Big round of applause for Luc Bentolila, please.